Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're continuing in the Ayin. Before we begin, we want to thank the Dvar Torah Foundation for sponsoring and hosting this shir. We want to thank them for all the different shiurim that they sponsor and their marba and their marfritz to all of us that we can enjoy the different Torahs from all the different shiurim that they post. We're going to learn the first piece in the Ayin. The Ayin is going to continue to explain the first pasuk in Parshat Vayechi according to the derech of the Ayin. The Ayin always looks at every pasuk, how to serve Hashem. What is the musar? What is the lesson, the message of every pasuk for us, Yidden, to use to serve Hashem? So the first pasuk begins, Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim, Sheva Esr Shana. Yaakov lived in the land of Mitzrayim for 17 years. Shnei Chaya of the years of his life was Sheva Shanim, was 7 years, V'arba Mashana, 147 years. Pirush Rashi, the famous Rashi, the first Rashi in this week's Parsha, Lama Parsha is Stuma. Why is this Parsha Stuma? Now, there's two different explanations of what Stuma means. There's a halachic Stuma, how you write a Sefer Torah. Where do you begin a pasuk? Do you begin it in the middle of a line? Do you skip to the next line, which means you finish a pasuk, and you now, wherever you finish that pasuk, the rest of the line in the Sefer Torah is empty, and you go to the next pasuk, or do you skip a few words, which means a few spaces? In this case, this is not what the word stuma is necessarily referring to. Rather, over here, between the end of last week's Parsha Vayigash and the beginning of this week's Parsha Vayechi, there's no break, there's no space at all. Why? Since Yaakov passed away, Kavyochel, our eyes were closed. Right? We all know when a great tzaddik, a great rebbe of ours dies, a great mentor of ours die, we feel lost. We feel that we can no longer see, we can no longer do things. We all of a sudden have doubts. Who do we go speak to? Who do we consult with? So too, when Yaakov Avinu died, Klal Yisrael had no one to go speak to, had no one to rely on, had no one to have lead them. And therefore, that's why the Parsha is Stuma. Everybody, including the Ayin, asked, as we're going to learn other pieces that the Ayin asks the famous question. Yaakov Avinu didn't die now. Yaakov Avinu died towards the end of the Parsha. The end of the Parsha he died. There should be the Stuma. Right now, Yaakov Avinu was still alive. Yosef still came to visit him. Ephraim and Menashe got brachas. The Shvatim got brachas. So it doesn't make sense. Adarabah, hastima hayitzarch liyos eitzel vayikurvu yimei Yisrael. The stima should have been at the end of the parsha, when it says the days of Yaakov were close to die. Not when he's still alive, and they can still go speak to him, and they can still consult him, and he still was a leader, a manik for them. Therefore it says, the Neforesh, Al Derech HaMusar. The Ayin says, let me explain this pasuk al pi musar, al pi limud that we should have. Hine ikar hachachma hu sheyagia al yidei zeh lebechinas anova v'shiflus. The ikar chachma, the ikar purpose of us learning Torah is obviously to learn mitzvahs, to learn how to do mitzvahs, but it's to understand that we are nothing, that we have anova v'shiflus in order kedei shetishu Allah bechinas kedusha, that kedusha should rest upon us. Kedusha, Hashem Shechina only rests on someone who is an Anav. She'eina Shechina Shari ala b'chinas Anav kiyadua, like we know in the famous Gemara in Saita. Now, the Ayin explains there's two different types of Anava. Keshu mizboinen, the first one is when a person contemplates b'gdulasa yizbarach v'remusay, the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'kula kamei keloi chashiv, that anything in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is nothing. Because you're standing in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nichna nishbal mepnei remusa yizbarach. You obviously feel like you're nothing. Who am I? Do you know who HaKadosh Baruch Hu is? HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothing. HaKadosh Baruch Hu deals with 1 trillion transactions a second. I can barely hold cup for 5 minutes. Right? Lahavdil, you stand in front of a Adam Gadol Ad Miyoy, the Talmud Chacham, who knows Kol HaTorah Kula backwards and forwards, you feel like you're nothing in front of him. So Lahavdil Elf Alfei Alofim, we in front of Kaviyachol Fnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, who will not be an Anav. So that's the first type of Anivus. Who bechinas Chachma Ilah. That's called Chachma Ilah. Chachma Ilah is an idea that you understand how Hashem runs the world. That's some of the Esesiras, Kabbalistic ideas, Kabbalah, how Kadosh Baruch Hu created something from absolutely nothing. Today, nobody in the world can create something from nothing. Whatever we create is based on existing materials. And even a new invention, a new idea is only based on existing principles that someone put together in a new manner. Right? Even a new medicine. New medicine is using existing ingredients, mixing it up or delivering it in a different way, and that creates a new therapy, a new medicine. But nobody can create a new thing that never existed before. The only one who was able to do that was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So when a person understands Chachma Ilah, and not only that, he understands how Hashem runs the world through the Esesiris and how every action that we do is governed exactly by Hashem, so he understands that he's nothing. And that's called Chachma Ilah, v'nikra bechinas shamayim. That's called shamayim, right? A higher idea. Shebechinas ha'anava b'loi mitzat, his b'ninusa, v'rememusa, izbarach, bechinas shamayim. When you look up to the heavens and you see the great universe, the great galaxies that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created, that makes you understand that you're nothing, that we're nothing. And that's called Chachma Ilah. Bechinas ruchnius, which is a spiritual idea. That's the first type of anavas. Bechinas beis, the second type of anivas, ukishim is boinen bebchisas erko shel adam. When you yourself realize you're nothing, as a person, eichshu meshuka begashmis. Look at me, I'm busy eating all day, I'm busy sleeping all day, I'm running after this taiva, I have no control over myself on this. But leslie migar meklum, and I amount to nothing. Ki makol mitzad chesed chinam shalabayir baruch hu. Whatever I really do have, it's only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to me. Yeah, I'm a very smart fellow. Yeah, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you Chachma. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't give you Chachma, then you wouldn't have it. Oh, I'm a great Chazan. Yeah, you're a great Chazan because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you a great voice. You didn't have a bad voice and you made it magically into a new voice. Yeah, I'm a great contractor. Yeah, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you the skills. So if your person really understands the truth, he understands that he's nothing. And without Hashem, he has nothing. That if Hashem didn't want, he wouldn't even be able to even open the door to walk into his house. Forget about the more complicated things. Right? How many people wake up, they can't walk anymore. Their back is in tremendous pain. But last night they were fine. Right? They wake up in the morning, they have stomach pains, they have this pains, they can't think straight. We take things for granted, says the Ayin, but when we understand and we contemplate that we are really nothing without Hashem, ki hakol mitzad chesed chinam shalabayir baruch hu. Every day we go to the restroom, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chas v'sholom can make it, right? He did it as a chesed. We acknowledge the chesed every day, a few times a day, right? We Baruch Hashem are able to lift up our hands. That's all chesed. What Hashem does for no reason. Even the biggest rasha can go drive, can go eat, can go to work, can go to the bathroom, can open up the door. That's a chesed chinam shalabayir baruch hu. B'zehu shafal be'inav v'nimas. He realizes that he's nothing. That's a lower level of chachma. You don't understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the manig of trillions of galaxies. HaKadosh Baruch Hu every second knows exactly what's going on in the entire universe. There's nothing that happens in the world that Hashem doesn't know. There's no such thing. That's Chachma Ilah. Chachma Tata is a more personal understanding that I am nothing. I don't know what Hashem is, but I know that I am nothing, because I know that without Hashem I would have nothing. That's called Nikra Tata, Nikra Bechinas Eres, Shemistakel Bechinas Artzius Shaloi. That you look at your own self. Now that's also a very important level to realize that everything's from Hashem. But it's not the most important level, the better level of Chachma Ilah. Beis Bechinas Elo Nikra Chachma Ha'eda, the Mekubalim or Tzadikim call this Chachma Ha'eda. L'fa'amim Nikraim Einei Ha'eda. Sometimes it's referred to as Einei Ha'eda. Why? So the Ayin explains, you look at the chachma that you have, you look at your lowliness and you look at the greatness of Hashem. That is hinted in the word bereshis. Beis reshis. There's two ways to look at who you are. Hainu beis bechinos chachma. Shachachma we know is called Reishis Kiyadua, like the Zohar brings down the first part, that the Chachma, the first thing in the world that Kadosh Baruch Hu created was Chachma. Then there's two ways and two different types of Chachma. One is a chachma that you look and you contemplate the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is usually referred to as Kabbalah, not practical Kabbalah, but Torahs Ari, Eser Siros, different ideas of how Hashem runs the world behind the scenes, how everything is connected to everything else, how everything is alluded to different things. And then there's the second rashis, which is we look at ourselves when we understand that we're not really anything. That if HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a moment wants, He could take whatever He gave us. And we also realize that a Rasha lives. Why? Because Hashem, for whatever reason, gave him chesed chinam. And therefore, that's called the second type of rashis. Which will base bechinas chachmas elu. And these two chachmas, these two ways to understand that a person's nothing, he needs chachma. A person who's not a chacham doesn't understand he's nothing. Right? Even a person who's not smart, he doesn't really understand that he's nothing. Because he can't think about it, he can't contemplate it. That's why it's called chachma. And therefore, a true anav is a chacham. The more a person learns, the more he realizes that he doesn't know anything. The more a person learns, he sees that how amazing Tosfos is, how amazing Rashi was, how amazing the Rambam was, how amazing the Tanoim were, and v'chulu v'chulu. Right? That is only comes through chachma. And that's also alluded to the words bara elikim es hashamayim es haaretz. Hashem created shamayim. Now we know obviously HaKadosh Baruch Hu created shamayim, but the Bas Ayin refers to shamayim as the upper chachma, and he also created the aretz, the lower chachma. The two types of chachmas are now yagia lebeis bechinas anava. You will come to two different types of anava, and ikram shamayim v'aretz, that as the Bas Ayin explains, that are called shamayim v'aretz. So just to review quickly, the Bas Ayin explains that there's two different types of chachmas that lead us to do two different types of anivas, which is an important concept in serving Hashem, that Hashem should be mashra his shechina on us. To be merkava l'shechina, a person has to realize that he's nothing. Now, either he realizes he's nothing because klapei Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm zero. So even if I think I'm the smartest guy in the room, right? But klapei Hashem, we're all zero. So 0 and 0 and 0 is all 0. So it doesn't make a difference that I'm the smartest guy in the room and he's not the smartest guy in the room. We're all 0. So it doesn't make a difference. So we're all really the same. Or I don't really understand fully the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a chisaron. But I do understand that klapei me, without Hashem, I'd be nothing. So whatever I have more than Ruvain or more than Shimon doesn't mean anything, right? The great Gedolim didn't deny that they were smart people. They didn't deny that they were Talmidei Chachamim, but they understood that they were all Talmidei Chachamim because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them this koiches. Yes, they took full opportunity of it, that's true, right? But they understood that it was only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to them. That refers to Shemayim v'Aretz. V'zehu bechinas das, that's the concept of das, an understanding of the greatness and the lowliness of ourselves and the greatness of Hashem. Bechinas hischabrus chesed gvura. That's also referred to a chesed and gvura. Hainu kishem estakel bechinas gvura, hainu b'shiflis erkoi u'miyut avodas Hashem u'delesle migar miklum, that really whatever we do, klapei Hashem, is nothing. Ultimately, we have to understand that everything that Hashem does for us is chesed. Even the mitzvahs that we do, that Hashem promised us a reward, really klapei Hashem is nothing. That's gvura. V'hakol hu rak mi chesed Hashem yisborach. And in reality, the more you understand that we're nothing, the more chesed Hashem does with us. So that's the connection of between chesed and gvura. V'zehu shemechaber bechina chesed Hashem lebechinas gvura. You connect the concept that Hashem only allows me to exist, not because He needs me, not because I deserve it, rather it's a chesed chinam. And how do I get to that understanding? By realizing the greatness of Hashem. Even though I know that I'm not worthy, no matter what I do, I'm not worthy, right? No matter how much I learn and how much mitzvahs I do and how much ma'asim tovim I do, klapei Hashem, I'm nothing. Yeah, I'm able to help this guy because Hashem gave me $1 million. If Hashem didn't give me $1 million, I wouldn't be able to help him. So how does that make me a great person? Yeah, I'm able to learn 18 hours a day because Hashem gave me the brains and the zitzfleisch to sit. If I didn't, it wasn't Hashem make me. Now, again, that's not to say that we don't get reward, that we don't get kedusha, and Hashem, of course, Hashem is happy and has nachas ruach from us. And obviously, the more that a person overcomes his deficiencies, the more nachas ruach Hashem has. But the way we look at ourselves, especially compared to other people, we should realize that we're all nothing. And now you shouldn't go to people and say, you're nothing and I'm nothing. You should say to yourself, I'm nothing, and therefore I shouldn't look at Reuven or Shimon or someone else as less than me. This also refers to the idea that Hashem made two lights, the great light, the sun, to rule during the day. Really, the sun and the moon are both great lights. To hint, the sun and the moon hinting to the two different concepts of anavas. Both ways to serve Hashem and to come to an idea that I'm an anav are very important. They're very big and they're very worthy. However, we know that obviously one is greater than the other. Hainu, and he explains, Hama'or HaKatan, what's the Markatan? The moon, Shemistakel b'psichas erchoi. How do I come to realization that I'm nothing? That I look that I'm nothing. That's the moon. Ma'or HaGadol, when a person looks at the Ma'or HaGadol, Shemistakel b'gdulusa yizbarach, there's another way to realize you're nothing. By realizing that Klape Hashem, I'm zero. So, like we said before, if I'm zero and Reuven's zero and Shimon's zero, so it doesn't make a difference if I'm smarter than him or I'm wealthier than him. We're all zero Klape Hashem. So I'm a nobody. So when you already understand that you're a nobody, you treat other people in a much more bakavadika way, and that's realization comes from looking at the gadlus of Hashem, v'ama'ar gadol. Now we're going to tie it back to Yaakov Avinu. So we just went through different ways how to serve Hashem derech hanivus, how to come to the idea of being an anav. Now we're going to start tying it back to our pasuk and to Yaakov Avinu. Hanu bechinas Yaakov. Yaakov is also a word Yud Ekev. Pirsh shaydei bechinas Yud, through the concept of Yud. Yud is a remez to the Eser Adibros, the Asar Mamarim, the Eser Siras, understanding the Yud, which means the Torah. Masik bechinas Ekev. You come to the concept that I'm the heel, I'm nothing. Anava Yiras Hashem. Zehu also bechinas Ephraim. That's also alluded to Ephraim. She'omar Yosef ki hifrani Elokim be'eretz ani. It's a funny thing to say, says the Bas Ayin. Hashem made me great in a poor land. Pirish. The explanation, says the Bas Ayin, ki she'istakal Yosef b'shnei bechinos. When Yosef Avinu looked at these two derachim, these two ways to understand that he's a nothing, his stakel bechinas dal shaloi, the leslie migarme klum. He looked at the idea that I on my own have nothing. The stakel bechesed haboy baruch hu, and whatever I had, said Yosef Tzaddik, is only because Hashem was with me every second of the day. Lazeh, that's why he said, Ki ifrani alekim be'eretz. Hashem made me great in the land, right? Be'eretz, as we explained, is the concept of looking how low I am, only in the poor land. The poor land is referring to me, Yosef, being a nothing. That's why he put the right hand on Ephraim. Pirush bechinas yomin, bechinas chesed, shoyr al oisa bechina hanal hanikra Ephraim. Right? Why did Yosef HaTzadik specifically use the words ki hifrani elokim be'eretz ani? Because that is a remiss to the avodah of Ephraim. Ephraim realized, especially later on, that he was nothing. That whatever he had was only because Hashem gave it to him. And that's the derech that Yosef HaTzadik chose. And that's hinted in the pasuk, be'eretz ani, through Ephraim. Pirush. Shebechinas yamin, bechinas chesed, shoyr oisa bechinas anal, hanikra Ephraim. Shaydei bechinas zu, mamshech al atzmei bechinas chesed. A person wants chesed, a person should realize that without Hashem he's nothing. And therefore, thanking Hashem. Hashem, I don't deserve anything from you. Thank you for this. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I realize I'm a nobody. And I realize I have nothing to offer you. And everything you do is chesed chinam. So you automatically start to bring upon yourself chesed. A secret that the Bas Ayin sticks in to his little but very important shtickle Torah is a person works on his anivas, be'emes, and he understands that Hashem owes him nothing, and he himself deserves nothing, and therefore everything that Hashem does to him, he has to thank Hashem again and again and again. He's mashpia chesed upon him, as we explained before. You tie gvura with chesed together. L'chein kishiu name shel Yisrael pesuchais hainu. Now we're going to come back to answer the original questions. When Klal Yisrael's eyes were open, when they had Yaakov Avinu and Yosef Atzadik, now, when they had both ideas, through Yaakov Avinu, understanding that they're nothing because of the greatness of Hashem, and through Yosef Atzadik, understanding that they themselves are nothing because Hashem gives them chesed chinam, their eyes were completely wide open, and they were not in galus. Now, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu knew that eventually Yaakov Avinu would die, Sheyistamu name Shal Yisrael, and eventually their eyes would be closed, that they would not be able to get to this level of anivus. Chas v'shalom lo yuchal liyos agula. There will not be a gula. Without understanding that you are nothing, and I am nothing, and we're all really nothing, and whatever Hashem does is for one reason only, chesed chinam, there would never be gula. Hashem chafetz chesed, when Hashem wants to give us chesed. Lachein, therefore, Hayriz Yaakov Shalei Bechinas Anal B'Shleimus. Yaakov Avinu came down to Mitzrayim for one reason. Why? Because we would be stumos. Which means really Yaakov Avinu could have went back to Eretz Yisrael, according to Vayechi. And the Yidden would have been in Mitzrayim, they would have nobody to look to guide them how to become a Novim. And therefore, because, says the Vayechi, our eyes would be stumos, therefore, Vayechi Yaakov 17 years. We needed Yaakov to live for 17 years to be mashpia on us, enough hashpa that we could understand that we are nothing, either through the bechinas of Shemayim, because of the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or bechinas Aretz, because we klapik, because we don't deserve anything, and therefore we're nothing. V'zehu merumaz b'hastima shlafnei Vayechi. That's hinted, this idea is hinted in the stima specifically before Vayechi. Because it doesn't make sense to say that the eyes of Klal Yisrael went dark while Yaakov Avinu was still alive. But now when you understand that the reason that Yaakov Avinu came down to Mitzrayim was because our eyes would become dark, now it makes sense. Pirush, hastima sheyeh achar kach b'Mitzrayim. L'chein heitev Hashem chazde v'hoilis Yaakov b'Mitzrayim beforehand. Kedei sheyu vayechi Yaakov b'Eretz Mitzrayim v'yishoy rishima achrav kanal. There would be a rishima. This could be understood. As long as Reb Chaim Kanievsky was alive, we understood a little bit the Stipler, we understood even a little bit of the Chazon Ish. Right? When the great Talmidim of the great Tzaddikim were still alive, we still had a concept of who they were. When Reb David Soloveitchik was still alive, we still, to some degree, understood what the Brisker Rav was. But now that he's not alive, it's hard for us to relate. There's no bridge between the two generations, right? As when certain Tzaddikim were alive, there was an idea of who the Rebbeim were, or who the great Rebbeim were. Right? When the Talmidim and the Chafetz Chaim were still alive, or people who saw the Chafetz Chaim were still alive, so we felt, okay, we were sitting next to somebody who saw the Chafetz Chaim, right? The Chafetz Chaim used to go look for people that saw Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Why? This person saw Rabbi Akiva Eiger. I have a little bit of an understanding of what Rabbi Akiva Eiger is. It's called a Rishima. There's a little bit of a trace left. So therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought down Yaakov Avinu to Mitzrayim for 17 years, that even eventually when he would pass away, we would still have a concept of an idea of how to become and how to work on the avodah of anivus through the experiences that we had with Yaakov Avinu. We could give over to our children and to our great-children. The Vayechi then continues how the word 17 is hinted, why specifically 17 years. We're not going to learn that because that's already a little bit Kabbalistic ideas above my pay grade, as they say. If a person wants to learn it, it's manoim and mayafa manoim, but it's also hinted in the idea of the two different ways to reach anivus. From this pasuk, the Vayechi teaches us how important it is to always work on ourselves to understand that Klape HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're all nothing, and mitzad ourselves, we don't deserve anything, and whatever Hashem does for us is chesed chinam. And in the schus of the Vayechi, all of our tefillos should be miskayim. And again, the Vayechi had no children. He left his town in Europe. He went there to Israel. So we're continuing his learning, and he's actually alive today, as we know. So, Sasa Davros V'Keva. Amen. Ken Yiratzai.